Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and everyone out there, let's raise a glass on early Monday here, starting another week of free agency here with the one flash, Zach Celadonia. And man, yeah, looking beautiful, man. He's got the chains, he's got the hair and everything going. How's it going, buddy? We had a lot of stuff happen since you made your debut last week.
Great, man. Thanks for asking. Yeah, a lot of exciting, fun stuff has happened for the Steelers, which isn't always the case when you dive into free agency every year with this team. So it's been really exciting. Hours after we were done recording last week, we started adding some players, and my week's been good with all that being said, because every day I feel like I wake up with some kind of newfound excitement about the guys we've added, about guys we still can add. And yeah, I'm really excited to be on again, man. I had a good time last week, and I wasn't sure if we were going to be recording today. And then when I woke up and saw your message, I was like, go time. I jumped, got the hair right. Fortunately for me, the messy look is in with hair, so it doesn't take that long to get it looking like this. And yeah, man, happy to be here. How are you?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Oh, me? I'm half awake like you were. You were all worried that I already rolled without you. And I was like, no, I just roll out of bed with this hair too. So it's not a big deal. Like, quite honestly, there's some hair there, but I choose to shave the rest of it because I'm not really into like the bald eagle, like Larry David style. So
I said that I would do the same thing. My mom's side of the family, this is how it's supposed to be, they're all bald over there. Like her brother, her dad, and my dad's side, they all have full heads. So I don't know how my genetics got crossed, because it's supposed to be your mom's side. But yeah, I've always said if that ever starts to happen to me, I would do the same thing. Just go bald.
Yes, I made a joke in the back rooms, less hair, more head. So, and I stole that. That actually came out of like some type of rom-com that I watched many years ago. So I can't even take it with my wife, of course. That isn't the genre I gravitate to before everybody jumps into comments. But if it is, I know that's what you prefer, but quite frankly. But.
I love a good rom, dude. I love a good.
Hey, with any kind of genre of movies, I never shut the door on pretty much anything unless it's a musical. And I know one of our former colleagues here, Eric Herman, would just want to like punch me right now. So he was a big musical guy. He's really into it. But I think he did like choir and stuff too. If I'm putting words in his mouth, too bad he's not listening anyway. So maybe he is. Who knows? Every now and then he pops in my mentions. But yeah, almost had a. Well, let's talk about one of the bigger news stories that actually affects us, but it doesn't really affect free agency or the Steelers unless you're following free agency. One name now that's absent from Twitter. Unfortunately, we just have to give a little bit of remembrance here for John Clayton, who passed away over the weekend or just at the tail end of the week, age 67. I don't know that they disclosed it was an illness or something like that, or brief illness, but I mean, he had been just tweeting like not even like 10 days ago, man, and it's just like kind of life's short, but we could all remember ESPN commercials. He's one of the guys I remember when I was first doing this that, you know, I admired, looked up to, and just funny, the gentleman who shares your namesake, Zach Meckler, I almost had a slip of the tongue with your name just at the beginning here. But he took some heat before because we were calling him the professor as well. Obviously, John Clayton, a different level of professor. It was because Zach was literally in school to become a doctor and get a doctorate. So doctorate equals professor. That's where that came from, and it kind of just stuck for a little while. But it was kind of more fun, tongue-in-cheek nickname. But we'll always have that remembrance of it as well. So just something a little more somber open as we get into some of the fun stuff here. When we were last together, we jumped into something that we didn't think we were going to talk about. So I'm going to bring that up first before we focus on the Steelers, and that's Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
And we both feel fine quarterback, but I don't know if he's a fine fit for the Cleveland Browns, especially the move that they just made what was it, 46 million average per year. It's going to be official now. Now we're hearing rumblings that maybe the legal issues aren't behind this guy. Browns just got rid of Case Keenum, their backup quarterback who was in the system for a year, for Jacoby Brissett, who we dumped on tremendously, and he could end up jumping in there. But just some thoughts on Watson. It's not necessarily that I'm going to say, hey, you know, there was one thing, though, I will bring up that I didn't think of. So I thought of, hey, he hasn't played for a year. He had a tremendous season, but maybe two things. One is he played in the AFC South. Mm-hmm. And I looked up the Colts, Titans, and, of course, didn't really have to look up the Jaguars for that year. But passing-wise, yeah, the Jaguars. Actually, the Titans were a worse pass defense all across the board that season. They were like 31st.
all three of those teams have had their, like, it's hard to keep track of their dark days, but all three of those teams, Texans had their turn this past year without Watson, but they've all, like, sucked for brief periods of time. You know, the Jaguars had their shine for a little bit, which was unfortunate for us in particular.
Yeah, don't remind me.
A lot of those teams, like, yeah, they've dealt with bad play over the past few years. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point is playing those teams for 6 of your games out of the season versus playing the Ravens, Steelers, the Bengals as well.
Yeah,
have improved. I wonder if you get more of the 2020 Deshaun Watson, and they play behind in games too. You got to also put that together. People are going to say, well, you know, they trade DeAndre Hopkins and, you know, he was playing with practically no one, which I don't know if that's necessarily true because Brandon Cooks, a lot of people really overlook that guy. You want to talk about bouncing around different teams, flying under the radar and still producing. That's kind of crazy.
Good.
Yeah.
He's still good.
He's still really good. I mean, he's still all right there. But here's the one I didn't think of, and I wonder how this is going to work out. So, you know, you go to college, you go to Clemson, and you come into the pros and you play in a dome stadium for 8 of your games, and a ninth when you play on the road in Indy. There's no indoor facilities here in the AFC North. And in fact, you know, going to Jacksonville, I don't think, unless it like rains or something, or it's that really hot weather that brings teams down sometimes. The change of the temperature, that seems to happen to the Steelers all the time, and they play in Florida. But still, you're not playing in the worst of the worst conditions that you're going to get. You're going to get that 9 games in Cleveland off of the lake. Once you start heading past October, all bets are off. And even into October, you can get some like tsunami-type weather and stuff like that. So it's just some interesting things I've been thinking about. And that's provided he even plays. And I'm wondering, does he play, then get suspended, then come back, or does he get suspended, and then he's, you know, off the hook entirely? What's the suspension going to look like? Because, you know, Calvin Ridley, everybody, the NFL is getting roasted for handling the way he did the sports betting thing, which it's against the rules, and that's the rule. But we're talking about completely different areas of breaking rules here, too, you know, when it comes to conduct.
It's the same but different with the whole pot thing, dude. They suspended Josh Gordon probably for two full seasons total. And I know he's a special example, but other examples too. The NFL has, I love the NFL, but they have no idea how to do their suspensions, and how they have no system in place. It's like they just pick and choose every single time when something happens, and they have no like database that they go off of. They have no set standard that they go off of. They're just like, yeah, feels like a season for this guy, feels like 6 games for this guy. So yeah, they need to get that fixed, because it is a bad look, you know, if you're going to let Deshaun Watson play after what happened and not let Calvin Ridley play. I mean, it's a terrible rule to break on Ridley's part, and I know why he's suspended, but if you're going to do that to him, Watson deserves a year too, you know? So
yeah, and I'm looking at this too. I'm looking at Michael Vick in particular. I mean, he goes to federal prison for, you know, pretty heinous. I'm not going to say he was directly involved. I don't know all of that details, but as far as actually committing the thing with the dog fighting rings and that, he was involved to the point of going to prison, but I'm not sure that he was out there, you know, murdering puppies and stuff with his own hands. But
pretty good, because I've seen the documentary a few times, so I have a pretty good understanding of what happened. But yeah, he got like 18 months?
Yeah, and well, whatever it was his sentence. My point was, when he came back, he actually had a lower suspension than Ben Roethlisberger did. and Ben had to appeal 6 games down to 4. I believe Vic only had 4 games down to 2. I think he played like the 3rd week. Let me see here. Let me see.
It's even McNabb's backup, right? His first year in Philly.
Well, when he came back with the Eagles. But anyways, it was and of course John Clayton's mentioned here. Talk about like coming full circle already. But yeah, it was he was allowed to participate in all the practices and everything else like that. It's kind of a crazy situation. I don't want to get on like it's like, well, what about this guy? What about this guy or whatever? It's just trying to figure out like what's going to occur, and did Cleveland really make the best choice here? This was our entire argument about not bringing him to the Steelers, was not only just a suspension, but 3 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a swap of like a 4th or a 5th. And then they gave him a raise, and they bumped him up. He was already at 32, 37. Now he's averaging 46 per. Now that's not going to be the cap hit for this season. The Browns are even making some puzzling moves here as far as they're floating that all into the future now because they redid the contract. So he has like a $1 million base salary. So that's the most that he's going to lose on the suspension is out of that as the base salary, which is smart for the player. And it's a kind of a way of getting around this whole situation, which might not be the most fair thing involved when it comes to fines too, considering his large contract overall. And then I think he's only like 10 million against the cap otherwise with whatever bonus. So you think about that. There's about 35 other millions of dollars on top of his 46 per year that's got to go into other seasons, void contract and otherwise. And I don't think we have the full details yet. But you think about that just from that standpoint, 46 million average per year. You got a 208 cap. You're looking at well over 20% of your entire roster tied to one guy who might not play. And then the players you usually get cheaper to put around them, you get from the draft, and you get your best players with, getting the earlier the picks, the higher your picks are. So you give away your first round picks. This is not, and I'm not going to say whether or not this is going to work out for the Browns. Who knows? It could, or they could fall on their face, which with their history might be likely. This is not what I wanted to see the Steelers do. And there's still a few folks that are out there that are like, oh yeah, Steelers could have made it. No, stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's the thing about me. If I have a stance on an argument and I don't want to come off it, I usually won't until the next shoe drops. And I don't know if you saw my tweets or not. I don't expect you to like have my notifications on Twitter, but I do. I actually do. I do.
Oh
man, thanks.
And everyone else should too. We got the ZE Flash NFL at ZE Flash NFL down there in the corner for those of you. Follow this man on Twitter. He's also funny, just not always safe for work.
Yeah, no, thank you. It means the world to me, dude. I'm like an amateur insider. I don't typically get early scoops, but whatever I hear, I try to let the people know and definitely let them know my opinion. But the thing is, when I was pushing for Deshaun Watson and wanted him to be here, number one, I admittedly didn't have the best grip on the legal situation when I heard that he was free of the 22, whatever happened that Friday that let him off for the time being. I know he's not totally off. I thought that was a way bigger green light than it actually was, because now it's coming out that it's nowhere near done and he still has all this to go through and nobody knows if he's innocent or not. That the Friday thing that cleared him for the time being is a domino, but it's not the last domino. So that is something that I wouldn't want the Steelers to have to deal with. Because honestly, it's annoying trying to imagine like, okay, we got Deshaun Watson, but so are we not going to have him for the first 6 games or the whole year? Secondly, when I saw that $230 million guaranteed, is that what it was for him?
No, I think it might even be more.
I
Let me find out.
The Steelers could not have done that. And that makes me feel a lot better that, I think Deshaun Watson's a great player, but when something like this happens and the Steelers aren't even a possible player in the situation, it's hard for me to be mad about it or really care. I think I definitely take back that I wanted Deshaun Watson badly to be here, not just because he's on the Browns, but and so now I hate him, but because of all these other things that came out that I either didn't do a good enough job of looking up myself, or I just assumed would be easier obstacles to get around for the Steelers, because they're not. It seems like more of a headache to me than anything. And there aren't many of them, but there are some Browns fans that I get along with on Twitter. And a lot of them are not happy with the move.
No.
And I don't know if that's all for show or not, if they're trying to, just seem like they have a moral compass, but a lot of them don't seem thrilled that Cleveland did this. So I am definitely happy with what the Steelers have done this offseason. I'll double down on that. What I said during my intro here is that I think we all could give the Steelers a little bit more appreciation for what they've done with free agency, because this has been a really exciting week for us as a fan base. I think so anyway. You're not going to get J.C. Jackson and Teron Armstead, but I have this scratch paper next to me here, dude, and I wrote these names down in preparation of our last.
Yeah, we will get to that.
And I wanted to have some names quick to look at of guys that I liked, and the sixth name on this list is James Daniels. So very happy with that addition. Levi Wallace is over here with Van Der Esch, so I didn't view him as a top-tier free agent, but he was on my radar as a guy that I could see that, and I would like that. And the last name I have written down is Mitch. So, these are three guys that I've written down that I didn't none of these guys I had a good feeling for, of okay, we're definitely going to go after him. But I made a real short little list here, and they're...
Hold that thought. Hold that thought, because I'm going to get your thoughts on Mitch for sure. But
okay.
5 years, $230 million, all guaranteed. And
I don't know that. How do you do that?
Cap number is 10 for this year. It is 55 for each of the next 4.
Okay.
Just absolutely insane. And then on top of that, they went and restructured Amari Cooper, who had no dead money at all on his contract, right? There was nothing. And he goes to the Browns. He converted almost $19 million of his 2022 salary into a bonus and 2 void years, and they created some cap room. So now his cap number increases to 23 in the next 2 years, and now they have some dead money on the books. They could have just cut bait with the guy if he stunk. It is the contract they inherited from the Cowboys. I believe it was all the prorated bonuses were already paid out. I don't think there were any roster bonuses. It was straight up $20 million base salary. So those are the kind of moves, if the Steelers go and do that, I would be questioning, especially Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson I would not be happy with, but I would have to roll with it. It's kind of the way I feel with even Trubisky, to be honest. But I've got some Browns fans I still need to talk to, and I've got my one best friend in the world. And he's kind of he's in the middle, but I also let him know all those years of him making bad lewd jokes about Ben Roethlisberger and bathrooms and whatnot. Yeah, dude, it's coming full circle with your massage parlors or whatever. And I had already said Watson isn't even going to be an hour away. He must have Googled this, but over in Northeast Ohio and Warren, Ohio, just northwest of Youngstown, my hometown. So that used to be, and they used to talk about it all the time on the One Rock station in the mornings. It used to be the Oriental massage parlor capital of the world. And yeah, and now you're thinking about going there, aren't you? You're like, hey, let me look at it. It's also a very bad place for heroin. So, so I don't know if you want to go near Warren necessarily, not to dump on Warren, but just so you're aware of the other side of it. But I knew some LEOs and stuff that had some stories. I'll just leave it there. The jokes have come with, I don't usually stoop to that level. I used to roll my eyes and I used to hate it. And of course, in Ben or Watson's case right now, neither guy have been proven guilty of anything. So we'll leave it at that before I start a major dumpster fire of comments coming whatever way. But that is definitely something that's going to follow Cleveland around. Because,
no, me too, dude. Me too. I agree 100%.
Yeah, for this landmark of a deal, they also get the other baggage that comes with it. You know what I mean? It's like bringing along, I don't know, it's like bringing Tim Tebow to the Jaguars last year, and you know what it's going to bring, or if somebody ever were to sign Colin Kaepernick, you know all the other implications that come along with it. Now, that said, I know you have some preferred free agents, but I want to ask about the guys. You already mentioned a few. James Daniels, man. We were talking, and we never talked about like Armstead or any of these real top names. We even blew off Laken Tomlinson. James Daniels is a guy that maybe we should have mentioned and didn't. You had him there on a list. Shame on you for not bringing him up, but
maybe I did when I rattled off the top.
Maybe
I only named 3 guys because what's funny is I didn't really care because I'm not gonna interrupt the flow. But when I was listing some dudes last week, I said like Kappa, Tomlinson, Daniels, and then you said, and don't forget about Lincoln Tomlinson, and I was like, well, but like so
he's a top guy. He's a top guy. I was just mentioning some of the top guys that were out there.
Yeah, I might have said Daniels, I might have not, but he was right about where I think you and I didn't get into the whole Teron Armstead, J.C. Jackson talk, whereas I would love to have them because you and I are experienced in this free agent field with the Steelers, and even with the unusual amount of money they had this year, which is awesome. If you follow the Steelers longer than like 5 or 6 years, they weren't going to make a move to bring in one of the top 5 free agents. James Daniels was CBS Sports' 14th ranked free agent overall, which is very high. Because here's the thing, Alex Kappa, who the Bengals brought in for guard, we gave James Daniels a 3-year, $28 million deal roughly. They gave Kappa a 4-year, $40 million deal. And Kappa was, I believe, in the low 30s, high 30s ranked for CBS Sports. And I know CBS Sports isn't the end-all be-all, but that was a pretty well-thought-out, constructed list. And they viewed James Daniels as nearly a top 10 free agent. He's about as high profile as I expected the Steelers to go and to get, would be about that mid-teen range. Tyrann Mathieu 19th, by the way, on that list. So I do like.
What? We're going to talk about him? No way. Like I said, if you follow the man, you would know.
If you took Joe's advice and followed me on Twitter at @ZFlashNFL, you would know all of this about me already. But I love the Daniels move. I think he's going to be a great player for us. I love his age. I love his versatility. James Wexell, who we've mentioned before, I really respect. He said that this guy just oozes young leader. He sees him as potentially being here a long time and helping get the offensive line back to what it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I may have mentioned Jim Wexell, who's actually somebody I speak to quite frequently, even in the Twitterverse or off of it. Great guy. I think mostly level-headed. We did butt heads on one thing that I don't think I spoke of on the last episode. The previous one, I think I did with something else. It might have been the defense or whatever. But yeah, I was going to ask which guys you thought really were the high profiles. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with Daniels. You may have very well said that. And
it's okay.
I was not paying attention. I was just teasing there because you got the list, man. He's got the list. But yeah, J.C. Jackson and especially Stephon Gilmore being 32 years old or about to be 32 or whatever. I'm not interested in those type of guys. And they were able to get Witherspoon back into the fold now. I think almost the secondary is almost roped up and tied up together here. We have a missing spot that we're going to talk about. But come on, man. I got to hear this one. Because we were talking quarterbacks. I was not a fan of a free agent quarterback. You had said maybe they'll bring in a veteran. You were all about Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if you're still about Malik Willis. I think that's just cool because of the Honey Badger for a little bit. You've only got... See, my man here has an allotment. He has so many credits he could use per week on a player. So much space he can put on Twitter.
My attention span is that of a squirrel's, I've been told.
Following the laser pointer like my cat. So where the heck were we? Mitch Trubisky.
Mitch.
Yeah. I mean, probably the best option they could have had. How do you view this? Do you feel excited about it? Do you think a lot of people think, oh, he was signed to be just number one? This is what I expect. I expect someone to ask. Maybe not even. They may even not get a chance to ask Colbert before he goes out the door. And they're interviewing other candidates, and there's a couple of really good ones they just brought in. They're all former GMs, by the way. But I expect someone to ask Mike Tomlin this question, like right out the gate, as soon as they open the floor, whether that be OTAs or around the draft or whatever be the case. And they're going to ask the question of whether or not there's going to be a quarterback battle. And I expect Tomlin to say something like, to the effect of, well, we didn't sign Mitch, or if he has a nickname for him, Mr. Biscuit, I think I saw on Pro Football Reference. We didn't sign Mr. Biscuit to not compete for the spot. And then they go right to the next question. He's going to completely deflect. So how do you view it? Because some people view, they're already putting him into the QB1 conversation, like when they're comparing to Burrow and Jackson and everybody else. And then others like myself think there will be at least some type of quarterback competition because the contracts are pretty in line without the incentives and whatnot. Speaking of another big deal. So how are you feeling about the Trubisky signing?
Yes, thank you for asking, Joe. So I want to make sure.
I don't have to ask. I could rescind.
Yeah, you could have just let it go, But so here's the thing. I have always been of the camp that I got into this last week, and I even grabbed the clip and put it on Twitter. I really, really, really believe that as a starting quarterback in the NFL nowadays, today, 2022, you need to have good athleticism to you. And Mitch brings that. So that excites me in that way in itself, that he is a good athlete, definitely above average, uses it to his advantage. And I like that very much about him. Now, I'll just run through for you the timeline of my feelings, I guess is the best way to put it. So when I saw the news happen, because it was after we recorded and I was still at home just doing some things, I was a little bit shocked. I was like, well, is this real? Let me see real quick. I didn't really have a yes or no feeling right away. I wasn't sure if it was real because there were a lot of rumors that he was going to demand a bigger contract after his year in Buffalo, and a lot of teams were going to be interested. So when I saw we got him right away, I was like, did we offer him like a huge contract? And he was just like, yes, or what happened exactly? So I didn't have an immediate reaction. And then when it was established that it was a real contract and he was really here and he was who they were bringing in, I shifted gears to trying to look at the positives of why I would like this. And aside from the athleticism, I think the year off from being a starter was really good for him and is going to be good for him because he had success in Chicago early on, sophomore season in particular, impressive. Nothing all-world beater by any means, but definitely an above-the-line starter. I think it's safe to say he earned his Pro Bowl year that year. It wasn't just a Andy Dalton fill in the blank. No offense to Andy Dalton, but I think Mitch deserved to be in the Pro Bowl that year.
Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's guys who get in every year as a sub, and it's like, really, dude? Like, I guess this will look good on your Wikipedia page for years to come, but I think Mitch deserved that Pro Bowl. And then after that...
He was an alternate still, though, because he filled in for Jared Goff. Yeah. But you're right. I still think aside from just like Andy Dalton, like the 1 year was kind of like Trevor Siemian. It was like, who do we have left that actually wants to play and hasn't declined? Where Trubisky had a decent season.
Interceptions this year. Just pick somebody that has a good ratio.
Yeah, he had a decent season. I'm not gonna crap on his 2018. That's one of the bright spots you could bring up in taking positives from his game.
For sure. Okay, and then this is the thing too. I hate the idea of blaming exclusively Nagy for his fall off the top, because I think after his Pro Bowl season, fans in Chicago and Mitch alike and the team, they probably thought they found their guy. And then for whatever reason, things went south. I know there was a rift between him and Nagy, and I know that his last season there, they got Nick Foles in there. And I think if I remember correctly, the Bears were doing pretty good that year, maybe like 3-1 or even close to 4-0. And then Mitch like threw an interception or something and they yanked him. He had a really quick hook. And that was the end of his confidence in Chicago. And I think going to be a backup with the Bills for a year allowed him to take a step back, not to use a cliche, but a literal step back because he's on the sidelines and he could really assess the game. He could watch film and not worry about making mistakes. He just has to watch the film and get the game plan down. He prepared like a starter every week. Even though he's a young kid, he got to sit behind Josh Allen, who, again, young kid. But if you can take anything from Josh Allen's game, that's great because he's one of the top quarterbacks now. I love his attitude. It's easy to watch these interviews and get yourself jacked up and excited, but he seems genuinely happy to be here and genuinely excited. And I think that the way they're like gallivanting him around and taking the pictures, and I'm making jokes about the pictures and everything, it seems like they have intentions of him being the starter. And I am for that. I want him to be the starter. I think the job is his to lose. Like Brian said, shout out Brian. I've never gotten to shout out Brian, but he shouts me out.
Yeah, we missed him. I was trying to get all three of us together, actually, and he was ghosting me. So maybe he's ghosting you.
Yeah, probably. I heard what he said about the projector in the backyard last week, how I was probably showing my neighbors. What's funny about that is he wasn't too far off because I don't have an iPad projector, but I have a smart TV in our living room, and it sits right in front of our living room window. And I pulled us up on the YouTube on my TV, and I was watching us on the big screen. So my neighbors probably saw me watching myself and like, wow,
look the screen around toward the window and put it on loop for everyone that's going.
Take it to the bathroom. Take it to the bathroom a little bit. Take it to bed. But I digress. I just wanted to get that in there. I agree with him that he thinks it's Mitch's job to lose. But I want to say all this with a disclaimer that I totally see where you're coming from as far as believing it isn't a done deal. I don't think it's a done deal at all. I think he is the presumed starter and it's his to lose, but it's not outside the realm of possibility to believe that something goes wrong in camp. Not just injuries, but I mean, what if he just isn't getting it, or if Mason has a really good preseason and Mitch looks average. I trust Tomlin and I trust Colbert won't be here, but I trust Tomlin to be honest about the situation. And if Mitch doesn't look good in preseason or camp, then Mason still has a chance to play. I just think that it is Mitch's job to lose. I think he's the projected starter. And, but I see your point 100%. I don't think Haskins has a chance at all. I think Haskins might get cut. For someone else.
That's possible, man. I mean, I still think it's highly unlikely, but it's still possible. It bothers me because the guy has a cannon of an arm, and for whatever reason, the pro game isn't coming to him. It's like maybe it's too fast, something, at least in Washington, and it's going to be my same defense of Baker Mayfield, even though I dump on him a lot. I think he's still at least a good quarterback, maybe not a great quarterback.
Me too. I like Baker.
He plays hurt. He's had how many different coordinators? You go to Freddie Kitchens in the middle of the one season with Todd Haley, and then they change things up the following year, and it's just like, geez, oh man, like this guy, something's just not clicking there, and there's still a lot of moving parts and turmoil, and now you're getting rid of all of his players, and then, of course, he's going to demand it. Some people were like, well, Matt Ryan didn't act that way. Yeah, but Matt Ryan's sitting there on a nice contract and has made a ridiculous amount of money for doing pretty much nothing. What's the number? It's always thrown out, 28-3 or whatever. Third quarter. It's like, so I don't think it's going to bother Matt Ryan. He knows he's towards the end of his career and he doesn't have a whole lot to say. Baker Mayfield has not made that money or had that extra contract yet. So, by the way, you've got a steel trap of a memory underneath that beautiful head of hair, flowing hair that you got that I'm so jealous of. They were 3-0 in 2020. The Chicago Bears started out 3-0. And so Trubisky, 20-36, 55.5 complete, 242, 3 TDs, no picks. They beat the Lions 27-23. They beat the Giants 17-13. He's 18-28, 190 yards, 2 TDs, 2 picks. Gets sacked 4 times in that game. So it's hot cold. Atlanta, 13-22, 128, and a touchdown and a pick. Gets benched, does not play. He's active 5 games later, so he doesn't play for 4 games. Gets in for just a 5th game. Then he's inactive. I believe he gets injured now that they threw him back in. And during the course of all of these 7 games in Chicago, they lose, so they go down to 3-1. They win. they win, and then it's loss, 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 loss. Like, it goes all the way down the chain of command here until you get to about this. There's 5 games left in the season, and that's where Trubisky rips off a pretty good run, and then he's shown the door. He completed almost 74% of his passes, 1,253 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, took 8 sacks. He had 2 fumbles during this. The fumbles is the biggest part I had, because when I do these articles and I'm like, I have arguments against guys. He was one of the guys I had the hardest to make arguments about. Now, Winston, my arguments from him all come from before his time with the Saints. But so, he's coming off an injury. Like I said, I could sympathize with certain moves. And you're absolutely right. What if you go to camp and Rudolph gets hurt and then you only have Haskins? Let's say you brought Dobbs in to be like your QB4 or whatever, or you have him as QB3 and you have some other guy that comes from like they've had like the guy from the Slippery Rock.
River.
Yeah,
Rivers.
Like he was there last year, and that's kind of like one of the guys that's just throwing the ball around. And people get excited about that. They've had JT Barrett there before, too. And it's like...
Yeah.
So it's just like... And people are still saying, oh, well, they'll bring on another quarterback. They always have 4 quarterbacks in camp. Like, that's not unusual. And usually always roster 3. Like, so I'm cool with the Mitch Trubisky stuff to a certain degree. Am I running out to buy a jersey of his? Not yet. I mean, like... Miles Jack, I might have to. The Steelers still have one more hole on the roster where if there's a player that comes along the way, you might have to buy his jersey. And that would be...
All of them. Home, away, throwback, color rush. All of them.
You're going to buy like ones he's not even going to wear, like the original, like 75th
Bumblebee
anniversary. Yeah, the Bumblebee. You could get the fashion jersey. It's like gold. Just get it. Yeah. Buy them all. He's not going to be allowed to wear 32 though. 23 will be open if he wants to switch it up.
Yeah. I would be surprised. It's not technically retired, but I would be surprised if they allowed the 32. It's the same thing with like Rodgers coming over and trying to wear 12 because only 70 and 75 are retired. But I don't know. That'd be a tough sell. I did
by
hear
the way,
that
Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, those jerseys have not been worn since they've left. The Steelers have some unofficially retired jerseys, and just to clear this up in case anyone's not familiar, we're talking about Tyrann Mathieu, and we're talking about the open.
Oh yeah, say his name.
Yeah, strong safety position that the Steelers haven't filled yet because Terrell Edmunds is still a free agent as well. And so they still have a starter that they need to find somebody to start. And I don't feel as comfortable just going out and going and get a safety with pick 20. I mean, they could. Maybe there's somebody like a Derwin James that's sitting out there. But, yeah, we both are in the same camp here. This is one where, like, before, like, Rodgers, it was fun. I didn't necessarily expect it. I still think he's a diva, but would he be our diva? Yeah. Mathieu, this is right in the Minka territory where I'm like, go out and get this guy. I want this guy. What's he going to cost? He's worn 32 everywhere else he's played so far. 3 other teams, the Cardinals, the Texans for a year, and then the last 3 with the Chiefs. 2-time All-Pro, several times over Pro Bowler. Not necessarily all because he has a cool nickname, the Honey Badger, of which we know Mike Tomlin has a lot of respect, and we're seeing a lot of guys on social media or Steelers players are interacting with them right now. We think there might be a recruiting trip going on, and Brian was thinking, hey, I think there might be something going on here. And this is you mentioned multiple times, the Steelers uncharacteristic by jumping into free agency feet first, head first almost, because they don't get into the legal tampering part. Usually it's only their own players that they announce that they're bringing back. We've done a deal with whoever, and they're not going to hit free agency. This year has been completely off the walls different, but what's not off the walls different is that this is the week the Steelers, Patriots, a few other teams like that, they tend to be able to get players. I hate saying discount, but their market is drying up. Teams have already spent their cap and their money and their budgets, and the Steelers have spent some of theirs too, and I think they might be able to get some in a little different other areas. But more or less, what last week's cost was for the Honey Badger or Edmunds, their markets aren't quite the same. They're at the top of these lists, but teams have less moolah to spend now. They might be able to get something done here, and I'll tell you, you're absolutely right. You got to go buy the jersey Depending, we got to see what number he's going to wear, though. I'm like, does he reverse it because Joe Hayden's going to be gone? And there's people that are like, oh, Joe Hayden's leaving. Like, come on, folks. 33 years old, missed 4 games last year, was making like 15 mil on a cap hit or something like that. Yeah. Like, did you not understand that was going to happen? But I didn't want to steal all your thunder here, Tyrann Mathieu, man.
That's okay.
You've been carrying the flag around for him.
I love it, dude. Sometimes I feel like I just ramble. So I like hearing other people's perspectives and letting other people get some words in edgewise sometimes. And the Tyrann Mathieu thing, yeah, man, we all get excited over players and the possibility of them coming to the Steelers. It's something that you just have in you as a fan. You always want your team to go out and get these big name guys and these guys that can help your team win. And Tyrann Mathieu, for the longest time, has just seemed like a Steeler type defensive back. He plays with passion. He's got versatility, great tackler, great ball skills. It reminds me, not the same exactly. You know, I hate putting him in this category and putting pressure on him. He's a 2-time All-Pro, but he just fits the bill here of Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, Troy Polamalu, Minka. Like, he is in that potential category, and he would be a king here. He'd be loved here.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I keep my bullet points straight here. Touching back to Joe Hayden, I am with you 100%, and that's a tough part of what we do as, you know, we're both fans, but we both try, I think, to also give people an honest assessment and professional opinions in a sense. And I loved Joe Hayden, one of my favorite Steelers all time. From the small window he was here, I loved Joe Hayden.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're right. You're right, though. He durability started coming up as an issue, and he's older and expensive. And in a perfect world, we could have restructured him and maybe kept him as a veteran presence in the locker room. But I very much wanted them to focus on Witherspoon more than Hayden. And maybe that's naive of me because he had a really good end of the season and we're assuming he's going to pick up where he left off. But that's called earning something, is it not? Like, that's Witherspoon earned these people to be on his side. He earned his contract and he earned the confidence in the coaching staff and in the fans. So I think they made the right call keeping Witherspoon, even though he's less of a respected veteran. And Joe Hayden's caps hit was too high. And that relates to what I was getting into the other day with somebody on Twitter was, oh, well, they still have to pay Minka his contract. Minka's going to be expensive. Don't you want Minka? How are we going to do this with the Honey Badger? Okay, yes, I want Minka. I love Minka. He's awesome and definitely one of the best Steelers we have. And you'll be hard pressed to find a fan who doesn't like Minka Fitzpatrick. It's just the people who still think that if we didn't trade the pick for him, we could have gotten Justin Herbert, which is just so stupid to think that it's that black and white. Yeah. So aside from those people, everybody loves Minka in this town. And Kevin Colbert, even though he'll be gone, he already said that Minka's contract will be addressed after the draft. And so they have that planned. They know it's coming and they're going to handle it. Minka's not going anywhere. I've said for a long time that Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, and Devin Bush, he's a bit of a question now, but those 3 guys, the Steelers don't want to lose any of them because they've invested so much into those 3 guys. They traded the first for Minka. They traded a first for Devin Bush, even though it was a swap. And TJ, they've given the most money they've ever given. So those 3 guys are pillars, you know, especially Minka and TJ. Bush has a year left to see what's going on, but Minka and TJ are not going anywhere. And the Steelers have that under control. So I'm not worried about, oh, what if we get Honey Badger? How are we going to afford Tyrann Mathieu? I made this point too. At one point, when we had Steven Nelson and Joe Hayden both on the team, freshly signed Steve Nelson, the 2 of them were in the Steelers' top 5 largest cap hits. Mm-hmm. So the Steelers are fine investing in the defensive backfield if they feel it's worth it. Because at one point, it was like Ben, Cam Hayward, Joe Hayden, and maybe DeCastro and Steve Nelson. It was a variation of those five. Those were the top five highest.
Tuitt, Pouncey, those guys were always among the highest, and even Villanueva, for that matter, when you're getting into the top 10. And that's where your money needs to be, is like everybody you just named is like all-pro,
They're
Pro
worth
Bowl
it.
level type players. Like, you look at other teams and they're throwing this money at guys that aren't worth a flip sometimes, or they end up being on the backside. And you know what? That's probably where we're going to have to close at, is actually talking about we were talking about this, the guy that's behind you. And now what do we do? What do we do here?
Oh,
with Juju going? Because there's a little bit of panic in the onset, and we've been talking about most of the moves that have already been done are kind of a hodgepodge of what can be done. Yes, I'm all for the Honey Badger, or even Edmonds. Edmonds provides consistency there, and he had some splash plays, and he's been getting consistently better season to season. You know, I had his jersey on last week. It'd be nice to get a little more selfishness out of that and wear it. Let's put it this way. I don't get to wear it too often, because when you got a closet full of like TJ Watt and Minka and guys like that, it's tough to choose which jersey you're going to wear week to week, and I have so many of them. And of course, I got Cam Hayward in there, so I had to get Cam.
Thank you for saying that, Joe, because I didn't want to leave that as just like, oh, it's Tyrann Mathieu or bust for me. Edmonds is my second choice. I still am very open to him coming back. I think he's a good player, and I've always agreed with you on that I think he gets a bad rap, but I think he's a good player. So he's second in line to me, and I wouldn't be opposed to Keanu Neal either. He kind of has some injury concerns, but if he's third in line, I would be intrigued by that too, because I just read that we did have him for a pre-draft visit, and there was a period of time where he was a really good safety. And for whatever reason, the last team he was on was the Cowboys. They tried to play him at linebacker and it didn't work, but he's informed teams that he wants to play safety. So I'd be open to him too. But yeah, it's Tyrann Mathieu, Terrell Edmonds, and then whatever else they would try to do after that.
I was trying to look at some of this. I think that over the cap's a little behind, because I think Anthony Harris is going back to the Eagles. I thought I saw something there, but Jabril Peppers is on this list too, which is kind of interesting. Remember, he was going to be a Steeler that draft. Yeah. I mean, I
remember they were like, the Steelers love Jabril Peppers. If he's there, they're taking it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, but I don't know. I'm not. That's more of an unknown to me than going back to Edmonds or getting the Honey Badger. But to that point, on the other side of the ball, where the Steelers don't have as much money invested, which is why they can put a lot of money into the defensive side. Yes, Juju is left. I've got caught in the middle of a precarious balance here, because Juju's actually been on the show. I love Juju. I've seen him do some really cool stuff with some of my cousins at training camp. Fun guy. His fun carries over to the ire of people who have nothing better to do but be miserable, like Mark Madden, which isn't fair. People have a life outside of football. We hear about all the good and charitable things he's done. We can only help but chuckle and laugh at him being young, so young in the NFL, he was still riding a bike around everywhere, and then had it stolen. And these are all good memories. I feel he's still a Steeler for life. There's nothing to say that he might not be back. It's a one-year deal. It's like a under $4 million base. There's some incentives built in there, which might be hard with all the mouths to feed in Kansas City. But we'll see. He's going to go play with Patrick Mahomes. Good for him. He doesn't know what the hell's going on here, and neither do we. We're talking about Mitch Trubisky, and put yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? He got done playing with Ben. He was hurt last year. The Steelers, and put yourself in the Steelers' shoes. He's missed some significant time, 2019 and last season. He's a physical guy. Yeah. His numbers haven't been up there, but like I said, it's like you could argue that because he moves the sticks and he's a veteran in the locker room. But how much is that worth to you versus we don't know what the other plans are in the so-called war room there. So he hasn't had a 100-yard receiving season since my birthday, October 28th, back in 2019. And that was the Mason Rudolph return tour from the concussion, by the way, when they played the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. So, Color Rush, I think, and everything. So it was like, what a great time. I have some great memories of that one, by the way. But aside from the personal effects, it's been a while since he stood out. Can you make him a wide receiver one type thing? We've always said, I think you said yourself, Deontay Johnson is going to end up being the priority here in the near future. can you fit Juju in under the line? Okay, Juju's gone. But the people who are crying about also losing, they lost 3 wide receivers. James Washington, I'm not even sure he's wide receiver 4. He might be wide receiver 5. Now, Ray McLeod, I was like, ooh, that stings. He actually got the longer term deal of the 3 guys. He didn't get the better money, but being a special teamer and everything else. Now they signed Gunnar Olszewski, formerly of the Patriots, all pro. That should be fun. But
I like
guy,
it.
Yeah, but I think he's not Ryan Switzer or somebody like that, but he's strictly a return guy. He's a special team and a special teamer. But okay, so Ray's kind of that one we could scratch now. Are you really that bent about replacing James Washington's production, which I did. I put his numbers up against like Ryan Switzer. Now Washington had better yards per reception. Mm-hmm. But he didn't really have more receptions or that many more yards or like a whole lot of touchdowns or anything where a lot of people are like, well, he was misused. Or he just couldn't. The Steelers keep drafting wide receivers for a reason and bringing in other guys because he's not, something isn't clicking there. We see some highlights in camp. You've been to camp before and many times, and you've seen the same things I've seen. And then we just don't see him get on the field. And you scratch your head. But at the same time, we know, man, we talk about the pros. We just said it with Haskins. That game, your average lifespan and the amount of guys you're competing with, there are a ton of wide receivers in the league. And they're just going to go and draft somebody else. And they already have their 2 guys. They got Johnson, they got Chase Claypool. They got Claypool because they felt that maybe Juju wasn't going to be back last year. So they postponed that one season. That was done in advance. James Washington, who knows if there's like a lot of truth to him. Maybe he did cry about wanting to have a trade or his playing time, and he put himself in the doghouse, so to speak. We don't know those things necessarily. We just know that he couldn't crack the field even over I almost called him Antonio McLeod because I liked the way he was playing there. But Ray, he could get on the field over Ray. So people that are crying over that, Juju will feel that loss in some different ways. Production-wise, it hasn't been there. So we'll see. I just think anybody they could draft, and I know you got some ideas too. You're probably looking them up right now, like some wide receivers that are available.
No, I'm writing stuff down.
You're writing them down. I know there's a few guys that you like that are out there, and anybody, I view it the same way. Darius Hayward-Bay, Justin Hunter. They even brought Plaxico Burress back, even though he ended up getting hurt, and he was more a red zone gimmick, 35-year-old player at that point. So it's not like guys don't come back or they don't find somebody maybe at the tail end of their career. Are they going to spend a lot of money on Jarvis Landry? I highly doubt it. That would be exciting as all hell, though. I would be for it if it worked. I mean, that guy is incredible. You want another Antonio Brown type that catches everything within whatever distance of him? That would be amazing. But let's talk some other names here because I do think they will add, aside from the safety position where they need a starter, they need just a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position. They don't have to hit a home run on this particular signing. It could be somebody in the nature of the other names that I mentioned. Yeah.
You made a lot of good points that I would love to touch on here. So Ray and his money. I think Ray's style of play is very in the NFL right now, and he did a good job promoting himself here, as did Matt Canada, making him so featured in the offense. I laugh thinking about how, FanDuel online betting, Ray's like you could take the over on Ray's receiving prop almost every game because they'd set him at like 12 yards, and the Steelers loved getting him the ball and like making him a point of the offense. So I think his speed and his quickness, and I mean he's got pretty good hands too. So I think he earned his contract here and showed that he can be a fun player. San Francisco, they get so creative with like their handoffs to receivers and running the ball. And I think he picked a good situation to go to based off of how they use their offensive weapons. So the Ray deal made sense to me. And I did think that it was possible to bring him back. It was confirmed that the Steelers tried to, but they didn't want to get into this bidding war with the Niners. So I get that for sure. I wish he would have stayed. I agree with you about Washington. I haven't been excited about James Washington since the day he was drafted. I was excited about the pick. Yeah, he was really, really good in college. In fact, you talk about my steel trap. I remember a mock draft I saw that year where the Ravens took him in the first round. And I remember thinking, shoot, like that would be a good pick for the Ravens. I hope he doesn't go there. And we end up getting him in the second. And
do you remember how that played out too? It was like because when did he come in? That was that after Mason Rudolph, and there was like or it was like he was the top wide receiver on the board, and they just traded Martavis Bryant, and all of us were thinking, hey, can we get this guy in round 2? And then we did, and we were all excited, and then
it just went. Yeah, no, that was I think that was Edmonds, Washington, Rudolph. Right? If I'm not mistaken, I think that was the class, and then whoever else after that. And so Washington's problem, in my professional opinion, if you want to call me that, is he does not separate well at all. And you'll hear people throw that term around and not really explain it, but it basically means he's not quick enough in and out of his breaks to separate from the defender. All of his catches are contested catches, and it's a good skill to have, but he doesn't separate very well. Laquan Treadwell had the same issue coming out as a highly ranked receiver from Ole Miss. Can't separate well. He's been a bust ever since. He's kind of found his footing in Jacksonville as of last year with Trevor Lawrence, but another example of a guy who can't separate. Hakeem Butler a couple of years ago was a highly regarded receiver. Can't separate. It's a big deal. Mike Hilton got that pick 6 off Ben this year. Who was he covering? James Washington. It was all over him. And it wasn't a great ball from Ben, but still, though, like ideally, if Washington has more separation, maybe he puts it more outside. I'm not of these people that are cursing the Steelers and saying, what are they doing at receiver? Like you said, panicking. I'm not panicking myself. I acknowledge that it's definitely a need, receiver. And but that's how I felt last show when you asked me, what are your top needs for the Steelers? And I said, O-line and quarterback are my top 2. But receiver, I filtered in after that. I said, depending on what happens with Ray and Juju, that could end up being a larger need. Well, they're both gone. So there's definitely a need there. But I'm not panicking like the people that think we just have nobody in the room. Because I do like Claypool still, despite his sophomore slump. I love Deontay. I know that he's a good player. He ended last year roughly, so all these Yinzers want to be like, oh, he can't catch anything. He had the least amount of drops last year in the NFL until the playoff game.
That bugs me, especially with him.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's bugging me, like you're saying you're talking draft, but everybody all of a sudden thinks at pick 20 that they're going to have to go out and get like a John Ross kind of bust or something like that.
Yeah, they don't have to do that.
They never do. That's not their style.
It's on the table, but yeah, it's not. They don't really go receiver round 1 ever. I think 2 is the safer bet. Definitely 3. If they don't get one in rounds 1 or 2, definitely 3. 1 is just a blip on the radar. I wouldn't say it's their idea. I think they're in position for best player available. I think if Jordan Davis is there, take him. I think if Chris Olave from Ohio State is there, it's certainly a name I'd be open to.
Man, and would that be something?
Right? See, so I see the potential for it. I don't think it's a guarantee, like slam dunk round 1. I think they're going to look for one early. But, I don't think they have to make that pick at 20 by any means. So typical of me to, like, see both sides of this. But I am with you that I'm not, like, panicking on the situation. But I would like them to add to the room. And you've already alluded to this, but the free agent crop is – well, you saw my tweet because you commented. I don't think it's very good at all. I said it's bad, actually, because – Jarvis Landry and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they're good players, but I think they're both going to demand. You don't like Valdez-Scantling?
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay. I don't think he's the right fit. Considering you have either maybe Trubisky or Rudolph, like I'd rather throw Anthony Miller out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Valdez-Scantling's more of a field stretcher. I didn't want him. My point is I think he's top tier left with Jarvis Landry. Yeah. Those two are going to demand the most money. And I don't know if the Steelers are going to deem that as an area they want to invest in, where they usually don't go out and get a high-priced receiver. It's very rare for them to do something like that. And I wouldn't be the most thrilled if they did something like that and then handicapped the rest of the roster. The next tier, you've got guys like Will Fuller and some others that have had injury. Well, it doesn't matter. But Will Fuller is in the same tier as a couple other guys that have injury problems, and who knows what they're going to demand. there really isn't like this is the name the Steelers can go after. Zach Pascal and Keelan Cole. Keelan Cole.
I like Keelan.
They're of that like category that I could see the Steelers going to get because they're not going to demand a lot of money. They're solid players. They're not world beaters. But aside from those two, I have a hard time envisioning any of these free agent receivers coming to the Steelers just because it's such a unique, bad crop of free agent receivers. You know?
Well, you left out T.Y. Hilton, who, God,
he's durability issue. Yeah.
You ain't lying. I was just about to bring him up. I remembered Pascal because I remembered when we were just discussing this over on Twitter. But yeah, Ty he played a little bit more in 2020, but 21 last season, only 10 games. Missed a game in 20. Missed again only 10 games played in 19, 14 in 2018, and that was the last season he's had 1,000 yards receiving. And like really his production over the years, I understand the quarterback position has been kind of trash. Really, really bad with the Colts lately too. But his entire career, 7 TDs, 5, 7, 5, 6, 4, 6, 5, 5, 3. Like, I don't know how much you're going to throw into a guy like that. It's 32. We've always said the magic number is 31. If he's 31, you might get something out of him. Zach Pascal's what? I think 29. I believe 28, and then Keelan Cole is 29, and Keelan Cole also has some return skills. He has some experience at least. So I liked him. He was over in Jacksonville originally, and he kind of caught my eye here or there. Also in bad quarterback situations there and with the Jets. So there's a guy that might be able to at least help a little bit, but he's also somebody you probably bring along. He's probably closer to vet minimum, and he may not even make the roster, you know.
Yeah.
People throw out names like old legacy names like Emmanuel Sanders, who's 35 years old, or A.J. Green, that's 34 years old. I'm not interested in any of those. Cole Beasley's 33 now also and commanded a pretty high dollar contract, and he's a primarily slot guy. Like the Steelers need some guys that are a little more versatile and can play and move around, and it just doesn't. Cole Beasley doesn't strike me as that type of player.
He doesn't.
They could add somebody. Somebody floated out like Adam Humphries. You know, he's 29 years old. He's been all over the place. And forgive me if some of these names, you know, have already been plucked off the chart, because I also see Cordarrelle Patterson, who's already been re-signed by the Falcons. James Washington, although not official yet. That's the reason why some of them are still on here. So like James Washington, rumored to ink a 1-year deal with the Cowboys. Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing cartwheels over this. I'm also not jumping at, they've got to move, maybe even move up and get one of the two guys from Ohio State like Olave or Garrett Wilson. And, you know, again, I would love, and we know there's always that link with some of these high pedigree Ohio State players. But then again, it's like Ohio State, Alabama. You got a handful of colleges that are supplying 50% of the NFL rosters at this point. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, that's about my thoughts on it. Don't panic on the wide receiver thing just yet. We might still get some news on some other moves. I've been keeping my eye on everything to see if anything popped in here, and the only trade news or anything that I saw of any value was Marc-Andre Fleury's on the move again in the NHL. So that's about it. So got that one, but nothing else. And Kenny Pickett's pro day and measuring his hands multiple times over. And I think they grew now. Pro day, everything gets better at pro day. Special rulers, special stopwatches, so guys get faster, guys get taller, bigger, and
imagine that.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, it's just maybe I guess the combine they just don't use the same type of instruments there.
We joke, and I agree. Yeah, the college is always going to try to make their guys look better because it looks better when you can like put a picture up of Minkah Fitzpatrick in your hallway and be like, yeah, he's first round pick Steelers. So that's great for the school. I have heard the combine is like terribly ran from a player perspective, where like they have them up early, like you're just out of your element. So it does make sense why some dudes like blow the combine. But yeah, it is funny how the pro day numbers are always better than the combine ones. Cause yeah, you figure, I mean, dude, I'm like 5'9", right? 5'9.5". Every time I played football on the roster sheet, I'm listed at 5'11". Like teams just want their guys to look better for the sake of their own program. And that continues all the way through college. And dude, if the Steelers, this is a name we didn't name, but if they got Landon Collins, who I think could be a decent strong safety, but not great, they would have Minka, Landon Collins, and Levi Wallace.
Yeah.
3 of the 4 DBs would be Bama. So and Wallace
crazy.
and Minka played together too. There's pictures of them playing together.
Yeah.
So they'll have chemistry, which is nice to see.
They just did the jersey swap thing in one of these recent games. The Steelers and Bills have been playing each other. I'm not sure which game it came from, but they did
it looked like
few years.
it looked like color rush for Minka. So that might have been the game that Duck blew. But yeah.
We were talking about that about a week ago too. You know what? I do have a little personal aside with that too, and both former lives that I've ran in, and when you're involved like in pro wrestling, everybody's bigger than what they really are. Height, weight, like everything gets inflated. Like add an extra 5-10 pounds, so it makes it seem like you're larger than life.
Exactly.
That's like all the way around with that type of stuff, and then. I've had my own personal experiences with professionally run with Major League Soccer when it comes to some of the referee stuff. And it's very much the same thing. For whatever reason, these idiots want you to be up at 8 a.m. Eastern time or whatever. And so you got to be there at the track beforehand. And I actually had a nightmare story here of, you travel to wherever, if it's a regional or if it's a nationally run thing. So you could be in Ohio, you could be in Jersey, you could be in Florida, you could be in Arizona, and each of those presents its own problems in March or April with the weather, and it's cold, or you're running into the wind, but they're picking it'll be like at a high school track. And I remember the one I used to train at, you're running on an incline. When you get the Apple, iPhone type device and you're starting to track your runs, now why things tend to go faster on the other side, the other 200 meters versus the first 200 meters. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you show up at this thing, or you're supposed to show up at this thing professionally run. These are the guys that want you to be able to blow the whistle or whatever in the big leagues and, control all this stuff. And they don't even tell you what group is running first. They don't, they're setting up on the track and won't allow you to come out from the fence, even to go in the middle of the football field where they're doing nothing, absolutely nothing to warm up. And then you're supposed to just go out there. And one year I pulled a hamstring. We're doing sprints. And I was just like, it's just nightmare situations. It's like, to be part of a professional league and to run something so unprofessional, when I saw the things with the combine, it was giving me the same kind of, old memories. The PTSD was coming back from some of those things that I used to do. And like I said, in a past life, because I no longer do it. And I don't want to throw everybody under the bus there, but if it's going on there, and I understand people are going to go, yuck, yuck, soccer, Major League Soccer. Yeah, it's not as big. I don't know, man. 30 some teams now. And, there's a lot of money tied into that, but it just goes to show that it can happen anywhere else, depending on what clowns are running the circus. So,
yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, exactly. So, you get it. Yeah, they'll fudge the numbers and they'll try to help their guys. Or the combine not well ran from what I hear, but there's always room to improve.
Yeah, and that's why some of the guys don't even run, and I can't blame them anymore. I can't. There's too much money on the line. You see what happened in Michigan? The one guy up in Michigan just got hurt.
It's
just
terrible.
On his pro day. I know. It's just you hate to see it happen. But anyways, thanks, my friend. I said we were going to go a little quicker maybe with this one, and it's not going to happen. We get to talking football and things go off the rails, but. Your beautiful hair and all. Got to get you on camera. It took me forever to get on camera. I'm like, who wants to see me? You know what I mean? I'm going to blind the sun out. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the hat gimmick like LL Cool J. And that's the way I roll from now on. So you're not going to get to see me. If you want to see me with a bald head, there's probably pictures somewhere on social media. You could always peruse if you have the inclination to do so. But Zach, hey, we're making this a habit now, and that's not a bad thing. So thanks for joining me, man, and taking some time out of your early morning and early week.
No problem, man. Yeah, absolutely. It makes me laugh. I think because this is our second time, but this is years in the making, us doing the podcast together. So now these first couple of times we're doing this, we always run over on time because there's just so much to say. I feel like that we've never gotten the chance to say. It's way better than interacting on Twitter and having your characters limited to what you can say, So We'll get better with speeding stuff up, I'm sure. It's mainly my fault because I love to ramble, but
that's okay.
I appreciate you very much having me on, dude. It's been really fun for me. And when I woke up this morning and saw that you were down to get back on, not going to lie, it pretty much made my day because I don't have much going on today. So I was excited to get on, man.
Yeah, and you know what? You're pushing me. You're the younger guy pushing me to do something. Like, I don't want to roll out of bed or do anything early in the week, and that always helps too. But the people that go in the comments, there was somebody that was like, they could have said everything that they said in like 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Go ahead, do your own show then. Like, yeah. I'm not afraid to go Wendy's social media and roast you. Like, they're not afraid to say their stuff about McDonald's and their competitors and whoever else. But I'm going to leave you with this. This might be a sign. This was yesterday's, the Steelers calendar. It's always behind. I know you're not going to be able to read it from there, but it's talking about safety Troy Polamalu named Associated Press the NFL Defensive Player of the Year after helping the Steelers reach the Super Bowl in the 2010 season. Is that a sign? Is that a sign of things to come? That just the calendar happens to be talking about a strong safety right around this time? I know.
That's enough for me. That's enough for me to take it and run, dude.
This is the guy that's pumping his gas and only putting in like $12.12, which gets you about a gallon and a half these days. So he could get Aaron Rodgers on the team. It's like all the good vibes.
Gotta do it. You gotta play your part. Gotta do what you can.
All right, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Zach. We encourage everyone out there, as always, to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.